Hello guys, good afternoon. We have today Kristina Rizzo, and we are going to talk to her about traveling. She is a dancer, and she does have an Instagram where also she does some coaching, and another Instagram page with her friend Kelly, where they do different kinds of activities with women. You should check it out. I'm gonna leave her websites on the description. We're just gonna dive into the interview. So, Kristina, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I love that today is Friday and sunny. How are you?
I am doing awesome, and I'm enjoying that it's Friday and sunny too. And actually may go for a walk and maybe see the mountains from the distance. But yeah. So tell us more about you.
Okay, let me see. So I live in Virginia in the US. I'm 37. I'm a single mom. I have a 14-year-old who will be starting high school next year. So big transitions coming up. I work full-time for the school system where I live as a special education teacher specialist. So basically I'm supporting programming for students that have emotional disabilities, autism, intellectual disabilities, and they all have behavioral challenges related to their disabilities. So it's what I do full-time, but then I think like most people these days, we all have side hustles and other things that we do outside of our main job, and that is where my life coaching comes in. And then I have as you mentioned, Instagram page with my good friend Kelly, and we also have a Facebook group. It's for women. And that's where we incorporate both of us, our love for, she's a yogi and I'm a dancer. And then we do have a lot of passion around mental health and just like taking care of yourself, especially as women. So that's what I do on the side. I have a long-term plan to hopefully take that full-time. So, every day, always taking action and stuff in regards to that, because mental health and helping people feel happy is really my biggest passion. Even when I was a classroom teacher, before I became a specialist, I feel like I spent all of my time, I worked with high school students only then. Now I work with all grades. Really life coaching my teenage kids, because, if you feel like your life is chaotic, or if you're experiencing a lot of turmoil at home or just personally, because, hormones are kind of wild in your teenage years, it's very difficult to focus on your academics or care about your grades, So I was always working with them through their emotional development, their mental health, just so that they could feel confident in themselves and then focus on learning. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I love to travel, obviously. That's another part of me. Sorry, I love traveling too. But I'm not doing all that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Ladies, go to check out her Facebook page. Guys, stay out of there, okay? So
I love the guys. We still love the guys, but this unfortunately is only for the ladies.
So tell us about your traveling experience. When did you begin traveling? I know you're not traveling right now because of the quarantine. But yeah, when that began, where was your first experiences, and for how long you took off to travel?
Absolutely. So I started traveling when I was 12, and my very first travel experience was when I went to Australia and New Zealand for 3 weeks in the summer. It was with a program here in the US that you applied to and would get accepted called People to People, Student Ambassador. And I got accepted and I went. And so I went with a large group of other kids my age and chaperones. So I was away from my home for the first time, away from my parents for the first time. So it was kind of crazy to just like your very first time being away for 3 weeks across the world. But I really liked it. You know, I got to go swim in the Great Barrier Reef. It was really fun. I will say that it wasn't much of a culture shock, you know, because Australia and New Zealand are different than the US, but it was still pretty similar. You know, the accents were different, culturally a little different, but not a huge difference, you know? So I enjoyed that experience, but I remember thinking like, oh, they're not so different, you know, like from here, there's McDonald's and all the same kind of things that we have back in the US. But I will say that the following summer, when I was 13, I went with my middle school 8th grade class to Mexico. And that was definitely a culture shock for me. So that was very different. I loved Mexico, but it was very eye-opening on how different another place can be. And I will say that was probably when I just really realized how much I love to travel. You know, like I enjoyed Australia and New Zealand completely. And I would like to go back as an adult now just to see how my difference, because I'm older and more mature, wiser, more experienced, all the things would be in comparison now, you know? But I loved Mexico. I remember we went to Mexico City and just seeing at the time those Volkswagen Beetles, the little punch buggies as we call them. They were all the taxis and they were just everywhere. There's so many of them and they did not obey any traffic lights. It was just like, I always called it like traffic lights are a suggestion. They just did what they wanted. It was crazy.
Just like in Peru.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, like, going to different places, and you touched a little bit on this, on culture shock, but of all places that you've been around the world, which one would you say that was more stretching culturally wise, and why?
I would say my Mexico trip would be one. Because we went to Mexico City, we went to Puerto Vallarta, which was not so much of a culture shock, you know, it was beautiful there. But actually, let me just say what was kind of shocking for me from being from the US, where we very much glorify like thin women. In Puerto Vallarta, I remember seeing many very heavy set women wearing bikinis and they did not care at all. Like they were just living their best lives. And that still sticks with me today because I just remember looking at them because it was so different than we would never see women back then wearing bikinis that were heavier. Now we've moved forward a lot, you know, in body acceptance here, but back then definitely not because that was in the early 90s, I think. And I remember that being kind of surprising, like seeing women who just didn't care about how big they were and wearing bikinis because that's clearly what they wanted to wear. It was kind of cool, interesting to me. But yeah, so that was a big epiphany for me. And then they took us to a bullfight also then. And that was a horrifying experience for me, honestly. It was really traumatizing seeing animals get stabbed by whatever those things are called and the blood like running out the sides of them. So I actually became a vegetarian after that and I never went back. And I had blocked it out for a long time that was probably the experience that pushed me into that direction. I totally forgot about it for years that I even witnessed that, you know. I think it was just so traumatizing to me at 13. But yeah, so that's why I think that was such a big culture shock. You know, just that bullfight in particular was very like, wow. And just the differences in the way people live there, and the places that we travel to. Because we also went to Guadalajara, and so those are very different than like some of the larger cities in Mexico, especially back in the early 90s. I'm sure now it looks a lot different. And then I want to say the other place was Jamaica, to be honest. I've been to Jamaica twice and I really like it. The first time I went to Jamaica, I was 21, and I didn't go that time with like other adults. You know what I mean? Like those first two trips, I was the kid and I was being chaperoned by grown people who were taking care of all the things. So you didn't really have to worry about anything in that regard. But when I went to Jamaica for the first time when I was 21, I went with my ex-husband at the time, but we were there as adults, you know, then. And just the way people would come up and just like hassle you for money and like they didn't care. You know, they wanted tips and they'll follow you around for tips was kind of shocking because that's not how things are here in the US, you know? So that was a little surprising. And then I went back to Jamaica just about 5 years ago on my own as a solo female traveler. And I loved it. Like I learned so much now from being 21 to being, you know, I think I was like 33 when I went back, you know, so I know how to navigate things so much better than I did then. So in terms of that kind of stuff, I didn't really have an issue with being hassled or haggled or anything that time. But I got hit on aggressively by just different Jamaican men, and that was exhausting. Like I loved the trip and I loved being there and people are so nice and friendly, but it gets exhausting feeling like you have to be on your guard 24/7 because you'll just be walking down the street and men will just swerve over in their scooters and try to like pick you up. So that's why I picked those two places.
That's interesting. Wait, did they do that even if you were married, even when you were married?
When I went to Jamaica the first time?
Yes.
Did I get hit? Mm-mm.
Okay.
I was with a guy that time, you know?
Okay.
The second time I went completely alone by myself, and everywhere I went, I was by myself, you know? So I'm sure that is why. But something I learned is, you know, one of the ways that they'll catcall women is by hissing at them, like by making a sound, which to me felt very degrading, you know?
Yeah.
And I even told them that at one point, that was rude and, you know, not necessary and that women don't like that. And then they called me a bitch.
Oh no. What a jerk.
I know.
What a jerk.
I know. It's just a difference in culture, you know? To them, I guess that's acceptable. Here, we just get, you know, if I'm jogging down the street here, what the equivalent is having the horn honked at me and people yelling or whistling, but it's not hissing. I don't know. Hissing to me just feels so much more rude because it's like an animal noise, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Definitely. Like, yeah, that's no way to treat a lady. Yeah.
But I still love the country. I mean, I share those kind of negative experiences, but that doesn't mean that the entire country is not great or worth it. You know, it's just some cultural differences. And you mostly see those in like the more rural areas. Like when I was in Kingston, I really did not experience that stuff very much. It was mostly in like McGrill and Falmouth. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing. Now going to the other side, which one of all the places you've been before has been your favorite and why?
Oh, definitely St. Maarten. I've already been 3 times in 1 year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's not too expensive for me to get to from where I live to there. Surprisingly, round trip, it's like under $300. So was pretty easy. And I discovered that because I don't know, you probably know, and hopefully your audience knows, but if you don't, Google Flights is amazing for finding cheap flights. So I use that all the time when I'm searching around, because I use the little map. I pull up the map, which shows you the price round trip if you were to fly from your airport to any destination in the world. And that's how I found St. Maarten. I didn't even know anything about St. Maarten, but I was just daydreaming about traveling, and I had entered in my airport, and then I just pulled up that map and I was like, wait, what's this place down here that says 260 round trip, you know? So that's how I booked the ticket to go there. And I went there almost a year ago now for the first time. It was last June. It was the day after the school year ended for me. So like the very next day, I literally woke up at 4 a.m, drove an hour and 15 minutes to the airport, and hopped on a plane and went to St. Maarten. And it was like the best thing I ever did. So why is, I landed there and I got a taxi. I went and checked into the hotel, that I was staying at for the night. And I asked the taxi driver, could you please take me to the beach that you really enjoy, that's not too far from here, that's on the Dutch side, because St. Maarten is two countries. There is the Dutch side and the French side. And taxis there are very expensive, actually. So she was like, yeah, I'll take you to Mullet Bay. And I was like, great. And I was like, well, can I call you once I'm checked in? You come get me. And she said, I'll just wait for you. Just go check in and get changed, right? I thought it was so sweet. So I did that, literally arrived, went through customs, checked in, threw my stuff down, threw on my bikini, hopped in her taxi, and then went to Mullet Bay. And while I was there, like swimming around, enjoying the sights, I was just kind of relaxing on a towel on the beach, just like looking off, because I'd been there for like an hour. And there was these group of people in the back having a party with like a DJ, coolers with food and beer and stuff, having a great time. And they were French. And so I'm just sitting there not paying attention. And these two French men come and jump and sit down next to me, startle me because I wasn't expecting it. And they just like started striking up a conversation with me. Just like, how am I doing? What am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, hey, just come join us, come join us at the party. And I was like, well, why not? So I did. And that's where I met all these people there who were very, very nice. And I ended up meeting my really good friend now, Roxy, there, who I've, still speak to, still visited. But that just kind of started the whole thing off. But everything about the country is magical. People are very friendly there. It's so easy to make friends. The country's beautiful. The water is insanely gorgeous. And I've never been to a place that felt like home. And St. Maarten feels like home. Every time I leave, I feel like I'm leaving my home. And I don't even feel that here where I live, So.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially right now with everything that's going with COVID, like prices for flights are going down. For those who don't know, I found the other day specials on Lima, Miami for $250, like just round trip. That's just insane.
That is insane. It's so hard not to travel, Like I see the deals too, and it's like everything in me wants to book all these trips, but it's just like so much is up in the air. Like, can you get into the country? Can you get out of the country? Does anything open anywhere? And it's just like, oh, this is the perfect time to travel, but we can't.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. Yeah. So from all the places you've been, where you had your favorite food from, like what has been the country with the yummiest food, with the most delicious food that you have enjoyed?
Oh my God, that's a great question. Oh, I know. Okay, so when I was in back that up. When I was in St. Maarten,
okay.
I took a little plane to Saba, which is another Dutch country. It's in a little tiny island that is a 15-minute flight away from there. And it's the world's smallest commercial airport. Or is it private airport? I think it's commercial. So they don't fly like the regular sized planes. They're like, they can fit maybe 10, 15 people in their planes. They're smaller. And it's the smallest airport in the world. And it's like the strip, I mean, it's bigger than this, but at the end of the strip is nothing but water. Like if you don't land and stop in time, you just fall right into the water. Or if you don't take off in time, you fall right into the ocean. But surprisingly, this tiny little country has amazing food. Who would have thought? But they do. And I even read reviews of people stating that. And I was like, really? And it's true. I went to this restaurant called Brigadoons, and it was amazing. I had lionfish, which I've never had. And so I figured if I was there, I should have something I've never had. And apparently, so lionfish is not native to the Caribbean Sea. And so it's kind of like not a predator. They have no natural predators. So they're kind of like taking over. So they fish them to try to help, control the issue with them being overly populated. I don't know how they got introduced to the water there. Somehow they did. So now they have an issue with them. But it was really good. And the dessert was really good. The wine was good. Everything was good. So that is definitely hands down my favorite place that I've been food-wise. And it's just a beautiful little tiny country. Everybody's super friendly there. I think they have 1,500 people total on the island that live there.
Wow. That's not a lot of people.
No. And go ahead, sorry. I was just going to say I found it because when I decided I was going to go to St. Maarten, I figured there'd be other Caribbean islands nearby and let me kind of search and see what those are. And that's how I found Saba, which I hope I'm saying it right. I hope I am. It's Saba or Saba. I think it's Saba. I found it just from doing a little search and I was like, what is this country? Because I'd never heard of it. I feel like probably many people haven't. And so then I was like, well, I definitely need to go there because how many people have ever been there? And then they have Mount Scenery, which is the highest point on the island, which is apparently a potentially active volcano. I think it last erupted in the 70s, and you can climb it. So I went there and I climbed it completely by myself. That was my first trip to St. Maarten. Was a solo trip too. I went completely alone.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're hiking an active volcano. I will be freaking out. But that's awesome though. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So let me formulate this. So of all the places you've been, there's different kind of music the styles that you get in touch on. Like, what has been your favorite too? Since you like to dance too, I
love to dance.
So, which one has been some style of music that you have added to your routine of being in all different places?
Well, I both have loved. Obviously, hands down, Jamaican music. Reggae, dancehall, I'm all about it. When I went to Jamaica, when I was in Kingston, took some dance classes, and they were really fun. I was planning on going back to Jamaica in June. I haven't canceled my trip yet. It's still on hold, so we'll see. I would love to go back. I made a friend there. Her name is Camille, and I was going to go visit with her and then take some more dance classes and, just do some more exploring. But now I have a feeling I'm probably not going to be able to go, but we'll see. So Jamaica, definitely. And then the other one, I just like being in St. Maarten. I ended up making friends, and everybody that I spend time with lives on the French side. So I fell in love with the French side of St. Maarten. And they all speak French, there, and they speak English too, but they speak to each other in French. So that's why, as I was telling you earlier, I take French lessons. That's why from going to St. Maarten. Before then, I didn't ever think I would learn French, you know. But I also fell in love with like French music. They have zouk, and I don't think zouk is just French. I think it's just a Caribbean style music, but they have French artists who sing zouk. Don't quote me on that. I haven't done my research, but I believe from just my experiences that seems to be, it can be in French or like English. But I've heard several French zouk songs. And then they have like zouk, you know, French, you know, hip hop and all types of French music. And I've fallen in love with a lot of French music, actually.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yes, and you also been in Peru before, right?
I have, yeah.
How long ago?
I think Peru was about 8 years ago. I feel like the longer trips get away from when I went on them, I kind of lose track of the years, but it was during spring break I was a teacher still at the time already. I think it was in 2000 and, I'm trying to think, like 13? Around 2013. I went for a week during spring break. I freaking loved Peru. Everybody's so friendly in Peru also. Very friendly. Made a bunch of friends while I was there, just like wandering around, you know. And I did go with friends on that trip. I was not alone. But I like to spend a lot of my own time by myself when I travel. So I only travel with friends that are okay with me wandering away. I find like when you like go exploring, it just opens your eyes up and you experience so much more than when you're traveling in a pack or like staying in an all-inclusive or things like that. So I love to go off and like see as much as possible, meet people, you know, just experience as much of a different country's culture that I can. You know, that's why I love to travel. I don't actually in particularly enjoy American culture so much. So that's, I think, part of why I love to be immersed in like cultures from other countries, because I find that I connect with it so much more. But yeah, so I went to Lima, Cusco, and Machu Picchu on my trip to Peru, and it was one where I felt like we were like moving nonstop, you know, on that trip.
Yeah, it is. Or at least most itineraries are like that. But I like what you say about being immersed in different cultures. There's such a beauty in it, and being rewired in the way that we think and looking how people do things differently. And that is just awesome. So from there, comes my next question. How does your experiences in tasting different cultures has reshaped your worldview? What would you say that are the biggest lessons that you have learned while traveling and being immersed in different cultures too?
Yeah, I would say I started traveling at such a young age, you know. Well, there's a lot of people that travel much younger than me, but especially for like someone from the United States, you know, I know that people have heard that like we're a country where not a lot of people have traveled outside of our country. And one of those reasons is like our country is huge, you know, it's massive. And we are near Canada and we are near Mexico, but it's not as easy as people that live like in Europe, for example, where you can be in another country within a couple hours. Like for us, we can drive for days and still be in the US, you know, it's crazy. So I was very fortunate to be able to travel outside of the country, you know, when I was 12. And I think that always having that experience, like I just love to see different places. Like I'm very naturally curious and adventurous. And so I just find it so much fun to, you know, go see somewhere different. And I love meeting people that are different than me. I think that I don't want to be around people that are exactly the same as me. That just sounds so boring, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're around different people who've had different life experiences, they can make you see things differently or think of things in a way that you wouldn't have before. And when you're just staying put in your same little community, you don't get to have those opportunities. And one of the biggest things that I've learned through my life experiences is that, like, as people, we are all more the same than different in terms of what we desire in life. So, like, we all desire to feel loved, I think, you know, by our families or by our friends or by a romantic partner. You know, we just want to feel loved and cared about, and we want to give love and care to the people in our lives. And we want to provide for our families, you know, we want to take care of our families. We just want, you know, to have a nice life for the people that we care about. And I notice in a lot of the rhetoric coming from people like Donald Trump, for example, is, you know, to be afraid of different people of different places and cultures. But I don't see it that way at all. Like, we all want the same thing. Like, we all want the same thing. So people, no matter what country they're from or where they live, like, we all want the same thing. We want to feel loved, and we want to have our family being taken care of. We want to provide for them. And like, I've yet to have that idea in my head proven wrong. You know what I mean? And that's just part of my life experiences through traveling have helped, I think, shape that view. And I think that if you don't travel, maybe you don't get to have that bigger global, like, perspective.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Like, that's huge. Like, I think that sometimes there's like a closeness to be able to immerse ourselves in another culture and even get to know. But that's very important, as also, like, we see other people and how we.
I'm just gonna move. Just keep talking. I feel like it's so bright for whatever reason, so I'm just gonna go somewhere darker.
That's okay. But yeah, so yeah, that's huge. So thank you for sharing. So explain the current COVID-19 situation where you are right now. What it's like, restrictions, quarantine.
Yeah, so I live in Virginia, and our governor put us on a stay-at-home order until June 10th.
Okay.
So restaurants and things are open, but they can only do carry-out or delivery type of thing. You can go to the grocery store if you want to, that sort of thing, but mostly we're supposed to be at home. And luckily for me, as a teacher, I'm still getting paid, I'm still working, but I get to work from home. So all the kids are at home. They don't go, here in Virginia, they don't go back to school for the rest of the school year. Like, the kids are done for the year, not done learning, but they're not going back to the school buildings for the rest of the school year. So that's really nice that we can have that opportunity, because in the United States, what each state does is kind of up to them. Mm-hmm. So unless our federal government were to step in and say, you know, we're doing a countrywide, you know, lockdown, or these are the actions we're going to take as a country, unless they made that decision, then it's left to each state to decide how they want to handle things. So there are some states like Georgia, for example, that have already started to reopen, even though right now cases here in the U.S. are really high. I'm sure you've probably seen. The death toll is very high here. The last time I checked, it was over 70,000, which is really sad. Yeah. And the cases in Georgia are still on the rise. But the problem is that there's a lot of people that are at home and they're not making money, and they need to be able to support their families, which is going kind of back to what I was mentioning earlier, how all we want to do as people is be loved, take care of those that we love, right? And so a lot of these people are feeling like the pinch because they can't take care of their families. They don't have money coming in. And it's been really difficult for people to file for unemployment. So if you lose your job here, you can file for unemployment, and that's supposed to just help. It's not going to cover what you made before, but it should be able to help offset some of the costs. But so many people have filed for unemployment that the websites are like bogged down, the systems are backed up. And I have a friend, for example, who filed for unemployment like 6 weeks ago and just got a letter in the mail saying what she's going to be receiving and that it would start within like a month. So you got to think like some people are going like 2 or 3 months without any money coming in, and that's really tough. So I disagree with reopening, but I also understand where people are coming from. Like, I'm very lucky that I am not in that position, that I have a job where I'm still getting my income. And if I wasn't, I don't know, like that would be scary. Like, most people don't have a lot of money in their savings to cover their bills. So that's kind of what's going on here. I don't know. I really worry that with people going back to work in different states that like our numbers are just going to really skyrocket and it's just going to get much worse. But, we'll see.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I think it's something similar like here too. Yeah, people are not working, and the whole government is trying to subsidize some of the expenses, but like still, people are just starting to get desperate. So hopefully,
yeah. And I just do want to add, like, I feel like I don't share this enough. Like, I want to say that the reason why we're in such a dire strait here in the U.S. is that our government does not support or help us. There are other governments out there, especially like European countries, other well-developed countries, where their governments have stepped in and are providing them a significant amount of money each month to help cover those expenses so that people don't feel forced and pressured and backed into a corner that they have to go to work. But unfortunately in the US, we're a capitalist society and we care about making money. And so the economy being shut down here is very devastating to a government that relies upon capitalism only, or mainly like 99% to keep us going. And so it's just put people in a really bad situation. And I just keep hoping that like this wakes other people up, other Americans up to like, hey, our government should actually be like caring about us as people, not just the bottom line, the dollar. It should be like kind of a mix, right? Like, we need capitalism, but like we also need to support the people that keep the capitalism going.
That's true. That is true. Going to the opposite side of the spectrum of that subject, what is something that you want to do when all this ends?
Oh my God, hop on a plane as soon as possible.
If there is no pilot, you'll drive it, right?
Right, I'll learn how to fly.
You can learn how to fly. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I actually was planning to take some time off before this began and go to Arequipa.
Oh, nice.
Which is a city next to here, and just go to the Colca Canyon. But yeah, I think I have to postpone it.
Do you have? I'm sorry. Do you guys have like are your like things closed down too? So like if you went there would be nothing for you to do.
Well, we don't know that right now because the government is talking about reopening the economy, reopening everything here. But I think there may be some general restrictions regarding like what that will look like in the general sense, on like how many people will be able to meet together when all this happens. But yeah. So let me ask you one last question. Why would you encourage other people, or how would you encourage other people to travel when all this ends and everything starts to reopen?
Well, I would definitely encourage people to start traveling again as soon as it's safe because, one, there's a lot of countries where they're really hurting right now because they rely on tourism. And so tourism is not occurring. So, in order to help support other places, like if we travel there and spend our money, we're helping to restart their economy. And I just think like anything you give out comes back to you in return anyway, right? So, helping others is only going to end up helping you in the end. It might not look the way you gave out, but you know what I mean? Like it's just this like exchange of energy. And so I think like traveling to other countries is going to help those other countries, especially the ones that rely on tourism to get into a better place. Like I think about those places all the time and I feel so sad because like they need and rely on tourism, you know, to help take care of the people that live there. And then I would say like if, you know, you're worried about like your financial circumstances, there's always so many cheap ways to travel. When I first started traveling independently on my own, with my son, we would take road trips and we still do, like we still take road trips, because I don't have a ton of money. I'm a teacher and I'm a single mother, but I like one of the things that's like at my core is that I will always travel. And so I'll always find a way to travel. So, I started traveling with my son, just like outside of like visits with family, but like really traveling, just the two of us when he was around 8. And we started with road trips and we just drove to other states and we would go camping. We would stay in Airbnbs. I still stay in Airbnbs. Like we would stay in a private room in an Airbnb. You know what I mean? Because they're like $40 a night and camping can be like $20 a night. Like there's a lot of options to make travel affordable if you want to do it. Like I just don't say you can't travel because you can't afford it, because there's always some kind of way if you're open to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very important. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. Thank you for sharing your experiences. That has been really fun and really nourishing to us, as well as to know. And thank you so much also for the opportunity to be able to talk to you. Well, guys, this is Kristina, and I'll leave below how you can follow her on all the links where you can connect with her content, as much as traveling and as well as what she does with her friend Kelly and all that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Have a good day.
You too.